My Ford S-Max 2.5 petrol developed a horrible squealing noise, and my thought at the time was that it was one of the bearings getting hot on the pulley belts for the accessories. Anyway, I kind of left it, had a little fiddle around, and couldn't find anything that was binding or loose or anything like that. So the car's old, so I kind of left it. Anyway, after a little while, a few weeks, I got the engine light. So I looked at the code, and it was P2187, engine too lean at idle. So I started looking into this. Excuse me. So for the S-Max, if you're typing in S-Max, squeal, things like this into Google, nothing really comes up. But things did come up generically, either on Volvo or on other cars, and it talked about vacuum leaks. So I had a fiddle around the car, and in the end I found a vacuum leak, and it was the crankcase breather valve, which is, when it's taken off, ended up in 4 bits. It was brittle and horrible and everything. So when I started looking into that breather hose, I then started finding PCV valve, and the cause of your problem, the squealing, being a split PCV valve diaphragm, which I'm not going to be able to show you the split in here with one hand probably. There it is there. So it's a minor little split by the look of it. Is that actually it, or is that just a bit shiny? Don't know. I have checked, it's got a split. I'm holding the camera with one hand, so. Right. So, a lot of people replace that whole oil separator assembly, which is a bit of a nightmare for a home gamer like me, who hasn't got a lot of time. But you can replace this diaphragm. Now, this diaphragm is available, at least on eBay I managed to find it. Local motor whatever parts supplier didn't want to know, effectively buy the whole unit. So what I ended up doing was going to I went to eBay. I went to, in the end, Parts for Volvos, or PFS parts, and this is a Volvo item, and so that's it there, 15 quid. And if I scroll that down, it's listed as fitting the S-Max. So that's okay. So we bought one of those. Let's go back up so you can see the part number. So there you go. Now the hose was this one, and that fitted perfectly well. I'll tell you about the diaphragm when I get onto it, and that's the part number there. That fitted like a glove. Needed 2 clips top and bottom, which doesn't come with. So I fitted those 2 parts, and there's a few videos on YouTube about how to open up the breather case, which it's blown a gale, so otherwise I'd show you on the car, but it's just ridiculous out there. So essentially, this is to the left of the airbox, behind where you change the oil filter, and it's a little 2-inch cap. There's a little slot here, and if you push it upwards, then this cap starts to come away. It's a really odd, brittle plastic. It did come away, and what I noticed when I took it off is like sort of my edge around the back had a little crack in it, so I didn't really want to play too rough with it. I don't know if I caused it, or if it's just maybe someone's done it in the past, or whatever. Anyway, I guess it doesn't matter, it's all gone back together okay. So one thing that I really struggle to find on the internet is what pressure is my crankcase meant to run at, because the test is that you open the oil filler cap, or you pull the dipstick, and then the squealing goes away, and that's exactly what I did, and that's fine. But objectively, what are you looking for? Well, in the end, I've worked it out. So this spring, the way this works is that you've got a vacuum here, and you've got a spring pushing up on this diaphragm, which is about 2 inches diameter, so it's about 3 square inches, pi square inches area. And you've got a spring. Now, I didn't measure the spring, but I kind of estimating there was about 500 grams when it was compressed, a pound, just in random numbers, round numbers. So you've got a pound of force pushing up, and then you've got the vacuum of all this 2 square inches area pulling down. And when they balance, then you get effectively your control point. So 2 square inches, to do the maths, 2 inches diameter, 3 square inches area, about a pound on the spring. So my estimate of the vacuum is 1 pound divided by square inches, 3 square inches, so 0.32 pounds per square inch. So convert that, and that's 0.02 bar, or 225 millimeters of water gauge, so the height of a water column that it would support. But I also convert that to oil gauge, which I'll show you why in a minute. 265. Now, after I'd done the fix, I've measured 400 millimeters of oil gauge, and my squealing has gone away, so that's all good. Now, the way I measured 400 millimeters of oil gauge, being a sort of home gamer, is I've taken a tube with a connection that I jam into the dipstick. The rod is just to hold it upright. Effectively, it's a tube that's running down into some oil. Now, this isn't the right oil, but it's oil, and if it gets sucked into the crankcase, I'm not gonna, into the sun, I'm not going to get too excited about it. So the tube is calibrated so that the bottom of the pipe is 0, calibrated with my very technical wooden block and tape. And you know, you've got that starts at the 20 centimeters, 30, 40, 50. So my oil, when the engine was idling, everything had settled down, came up to here. So that's 400 millimeters. So that's quite a cheap, basic way of measuring a vacuum without having to get a vacuum gauge, which I didn't have. So that's about it. So you were looking for a very, very slight vacuum. It only just pulls the cap, oil filler cap down. It doesn't, it doesn't rip it out your hand essentially. But yeah, if you want to measure it, then that's what you're looking for. Now, this is the diaphragm that came out, and I didn't have the luxury of knowing exactly what it would look like before I bought the new one. So the thing to note on this is that there is a little lip, get it the right way, little lip here, and that the black end is the bottom end, which is exposed to the oil, and the top end is just exposed to the cap, which is ventilated to atmosphere. So that sits on sort of this groove here and forms the seal, and then the top piece presses down on it, and you get a full seal. And the reason that you get high vacuum when this is split is because you're leaking in air through here, and this diaphragm doesn't pull down with the same force to oppose the spring. So essentially you get an imbalance and you'll get high vacuum because this thing will be more open and suck in more to the manifold. Now, going back to the computer, you've got, god damn, I've got two screens set up going on here. Right, okay. So this diaphragm is not the same as this diaphragm. So when it arrived, it was a case of, well, what do you do? Well, I shoved it in anyway. And what I found was that the lip here does not fit over the lip in the casing. So it kind of fits it inside it, but it didn't quite fit inside it either. So it was not a snug fit. Now when you put this back together, you've got to put the spring in, then you put this, and this is the face that faces downwards. This is sort of a plastic ring, and the back is it's got a few dimples and it's orange. So I plunked it all together and hope for the best, because it's probably better than what I've got. And besides, what can you do? You've got the engine open and you need the car like the same day. But after it had, so initially it didn't seem to have solved the problem. It was still squealing. But after I'd taken it for a drive and it had had a chance to heat cycle and have a vacuum cycle, you know, it would have been pushing in and out and in and out. It did settle and it does work, so it's staying in there, and that's, you know, that's kind of the end to it for now. But I did find on the eBay one that looks much more like what we're looking for. So, and that dimension there, the 58.3, is more or less what I measured with my calipers. So this is from eBay seller Valera 201286. Sorry about the light, that was not for the screen. $20, 15 quid, and that's in Ukraine. So I've ordered one anyway, because this hadn't settled down before I ordered it, and I just need something to sort my blinking car out. Okay, so that's that. In terms of getting this cap off, a lot of people just seem to, there's a little groove under here and they hang on it with a big lever. Now I've got broken collarbone, which means I've got a very weak arm at the moment, and I didn't really fancy that. So what I ended up doing was, where the oil breather runs down the same port, I had to take it out anyway, so took it out and then ran this 8mm threaded rod down it, made a little bracket for the bottom with a little hole here, and I sat that hole against the cap and used that screwdriver, nice sort of rounded, completely worn out one, in there, and then just basically pressed that in, held this tight in my hand, and then wound the nut on the top of this with a spanner until it came away, and there was no forces and there was no recoil, there was no hassle. I mean, you can only get one hand down in this bloody area with this 2-inch thing anyway. And then when I wanted to come put it back together, you've got this sort of pound spring pushing on the cap, and you've got the spring, the diaphragm and the cap all sort of held down with one hand, and it's very difficult to put any force on it. So what I ended up doing there was putting that wooden block on top of it and then running that rod, there we go, down through that same gap, and just centered it nice and gave it a few taps with the hammer until it had all seated. The cap has got a little air vent in it, so that it vents this side. There's one little notch there. I don't know if you have to, but I aligned it with one of the notches that comes down. There's one in the front, one in the back. Anyway, it all kind of worked. So I just wanted to put that video up there because I had to piece that all together from various Volvo videos and God knows what different cars. And there's nothing there for the S-Max. So, you know, the ST220 Focus, the Mondeo, the Cougar, the Galaxy, all of these 2.5 Volvo derivative engines. So if you've got one of those and you've got this problem, then hopefully that's helped you. Okay. Hopefully you'll have a better job of it than I ended up with this thing going on for weeks and weeks. Anyway, it's done now, thank God for that. All we need now is to get rid of some of this pigging rain and wind, and I won't have to use the car. I can get back on the bike. Right, have a good day.